We've talked, I think, for a generation now about, how big of a presence Walmart has had in America. And it actually is like the story that Walmart sort of, I think, propelled into America for like these big box stores and changing small town America. Dollar General has actually taken a lot of that farther now. The stores have a much, much, much smaller footprint, which we described in the story. The price points are amazingly affordable and seemingly inflation-proof, as we also point out in the story. The cost of all of this, though, is that it turns out to be a really troubling place to work. And the people who actually work in the stores, a retail job, wow, the stuff that they've gone through. So Brendan, Josh Adelson, but was lead writer on this. Brendan Case, also intimately familiar with it. Brendan, what was the reporting tidbit that made you and Josh just really want to dig into this?
There were a couple things, and one of them was what we say at the very beginning of the story, which was that if you look at a lot of the fines that the Labor Department through OSHA has levied against Dollar General, one of the things that keeps coming up over and over again is blocked exits, which obviously matters a lot to OSHA. It harks back to the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York.
Which is actually a reminder, OSHA was founded because of that, right?
Yeah. And one thing that surprised us was talking with an employee in New Orleans who said that in his case, the blocked exits were no accident. In fact, a manager had told him to purposefully block exits to try to cut down on shoplifting, make it harder to get out of the store. That was one thing. Another thing that jumped out was just the lack of heating and air conditioning. And we talked with people who had put ice packs down their pants when it got hot, wore multiple coats and layers when it got cold. And one regional manager who was fairly high up in the company who told us that she was just really shocked by how difficult it was to get funding for basic maintenance, basic upkeep.
So on top of all that, there's this sense that Dollar General has just been in this incredible growth strategy. So talk about how it's kind of swept the country a little bit, Brendan.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how fast it's grown. To your point, it's a little bit sort of a creature of the Walmart era. Walmart comes in and it wipes out a lot of retailers across the country and leaves a landscape that if you're not close to a Walmart or have a easy access to a car, you might not have as many retailers that as you had before. And so in swoops Dollar General and many of its rivals, and opens up stores to the tune of typically 1,000 a year. And so they've got more than 19,000 locations around the country right now. You compare that with a little more than 5,000 for Walmart, including the Sam's Club locations. And you start to get a sense of how ubiquitous it is, especially in smaller towns. About 80% of its stores are in towns of 20,000 people or fewer. And if you drive through through the countryside in many states, particularly the Southeast, but in many other parts of the country as well, you'll see store after store.
So we talked about the block fire exits. Can we also talk about the back guano? Because there's some of that in the story, Brendan.
Joel's been saying it a lot since he came in the studio.
Yeah, I was waiting to do that transition there. How crazy are some of the reporting details that you found?
Yeah, the issue of animals getting into the stores and befouling the merchandise is something that also came up over and over again. There was one case in Oklahoma where birds got in and used sections of the store as a bathroom, and the store manager there told us that he was told to just take the merchandise home, wash it in your washing machine if you have to, and bring it back and put it back on the shelves. There was another instance in which there was an Iowa store there was a worry about asbestos, but after inspection, some state inspectors found out that it wasn't asbestos. That was the good news. The bad news was that it was stains from bat feces.
I mean,
this was all over a wall.
It's pages and pages of disturbing anecdotes, of disturbing experiences that employees have had. I mean, one thing that really stuck out to me was the employee who, there's one employee in the store, the employee asking a customer to watch the store while he or she went to the bathroom. I mean,
crazy.
The thing that I was thinking throughout this piece is that this is working for Dollar General. They're making a calculation that they can allow their stores to reach this condition, pay their employees this wage, have this few of employees in a single store, because it's worked, especially over the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's really worked for a long time, and they've had, from a financial standpoint, a really strong record of sales increases and profit increases. One thing they're good at doing, and this is not true of all retailers, is opening new stores and fairly immediately having them contribute to the bottom line. Now, this year has been a different story for Dollar General, at least from a stock market perspective, where the shares have come way down. They've cut the profit forecast a couple times. One of the big problems, obviously, is just the financial pressures on their customer base, which skews towards the lower income end of the spectrum. They have said, however, that they're going to spend more on labor. And that's at least, that's certainly an acknowledgement that the store conditions are not where they want them, and that they're starting to spend money to try to improve things this year. Another thing that's driving that, I think, is just a stepped up competitive threat. For years, Dollar General was known as, the big successful dollar store chain. Dollar Tree, its closest rival, was sort of an also-ran. That company's in the middle of a turnaround, and so, seems to be becoming a stronger competitor. And then you've got Walmart, which lost some ground to the dollar stores in the wake of the Great Recession, really doesn't want that to happen again if the economy slows down, and is rolling out a lot of initiatives, whether it's, pricing or delivery services that are designed to sort of counter competition on the lower end.
Hey, Brendan, and the stock, as you said, down more than 50% this year, trading at a 52-week low. What does the company say about all of this?
They reported earnings a couple weeks ago and, again, cut their profit forecast. And interestingly, they had initially said they were going to spend an extra $100 million on labor this year. They moved that number up to $150 million last month. So clearly engaging with the idea that for their own customers, their own workers, there are some things that are falling short right now. Whether that's enough remains a big question mark.
But what I mean about all these specific things, I mean, this is pretty gross for workers and unsafe for workers. And, we talked about the New Orleans worker who were blocking, the fire exits, and there was a fire. Unfortunately, nobody was there. But this stuff continues, and I'm curious if the company addressed any of these specifics.
The company told us in a pretty, we sent them a very detailed inquiry. They got back to us with a significant reply that repeated things they've said in the past, which has to do with them saying that they want to provide stores that are safe to work in. They want to provide opportunity for their workers. I think that a lot of the details in the story show the ways in which they've come up short in those goals. The extra investment they're making suggests that, they're sort of acknowledging some of the shortcomings. But again, whether that turns out to be enough to really kind of turn things around, I think the proof will be in the pudding.
And this is in the story, but it really does kind of culminate with a shareholder meeting where the employees really did get their attention. So we'll see where that leads. I do think, Brendan, when you just look at the incredible performance that the company has had on the stock market really until this year, what's happened? Because you would think, like, with the economy being where it is, inflation being where it is, this looks like a pretty good value proposition to an American consumer. And yet, you look at that share price and it's like, the ceiling of bat guano fell apart and everything fell apart. What's happened?
I point to two things, and one of them is tougher competition. I think Dollar Tree brought in a former CEO of Dollar General with backing from an activist investor, Mantle Ridge. Their comparable sales numbers suggest that they're getting some traction there, that people, consumers out there are noticing improvements and responding. That's one thing. Another thing is the whole issue of trade down. In the wake of the financial crisis, you had a lot of trade down from middle income, higher income people doing just what you say, saying, look, that's going to be a great bargain. I'm going to buy more stuff at Dollar General or Dollar Tree or other dollar stores. I think you're seeing a lot less of that right now. And where you're seeing it is in Walmart. And so I think that whether it's competition from small box stores like other dollar stores or competition from the really big ones out there, I think Dollar General is under a lot more pressure than it used to be. Now, at the same time, by its own admission, it has this issue with store conditions. Can it fix the store conditions? Is fixing the store conditions going to be good enough to get back some of that business and get back onto a growth path in terms of comparable sales, store by store? That's an open question.